Getting ready for some playoff football this weekend. I see the mayor is going to be out at LC's barbecue later today. He'll be making a bet with the Houston mayor, so he is here on KCMO for the warm-up. Back to that. What are we betting this year with the Houston mayor, Mayor Lucas?
Well, it is always some good barbecue. As you know, there have been other mayors of American cities who maybe have gone a bit awry on their bets before, so nothing strange for me. It's always barbecue in the run-up to hopefully a Super Bowl for us. Of course, fingers crossed. I know that the Texans will come stronger than they played us a few weeks ago, but hoping for a win. So just barbecue versus whatever the heck Houston has to give us. Hopefully not humidity.
So you don't know what's on the table from the Houston mayor right now?
I do not know yet. Now, that might just be that I haven't checked in with staff today who tend to know, like, all these things. I like to be off the cuff. They would prefer me be much more choreographed, so I don't launch stories during the Pete Mundo hits that I do each week. But, I don't know. So looking forward to whatever they may have to come.
Well, speaking of things that we talk about each week, I know you said yesterday to some of the local TV reporters they can find out more coming up at 10:45 regarding your thoughts and your commentary on this story out of the Kansas City Star that suggests the city may not put on the traditional Super Bowl rally and parade if the three-peat does happen. But you should have mentioned they could tune in at 7:30 today to really get the scoop on what's happening. So where are you at as the leader of this town when it comes to a potential parade if they can win 3 more games?
A few things for clarification. And I know, first of all, on the superstition side and the bulletin board material, I'm not getting ahead of the fact the Chiefs have 3 games to win before we would even get to that point. I wish them well this weekend and hopefully in the weeks ahead. Second, city governments actually do plan ahead. I've had a few people, mainly on social media, who say, Q, what the heck, man? And just in case you've been wondering all these years, we don't just roll something out on Sunday night and then have a parade 2 days later. So we plan for almost every contingency, including this year for the Kansas City Current and the Kansas City Royals. We had meetings about what does a celebration look like and what we do. In terms of if there is a football celebration this year, I think there are a few things that guide our goals on it. One, you look to reinvigorate things anyway. You learn from every past incident. You remember in 2020, we had a bozo who was high on meth or something who drove along the route. We have fortified our route since then. That was an important change. Last year, certainly, we had a tragedy, and we want to make sure that we avoid that. So our goal as we look to all of these, and this is really, less about the team itself, and while we always enjoy a good relationship with them, this is a law enforcement, event planning, city budget, public works, that sort of discourse. And that's what we're thinking about now. The Star story, made it seem as if, certain things were off the table. But my view is we're evaluating what can be done best, and we'll make sure we share that as efficiently as possible with people of Kansas City.
What's the biggest barrier? Is it the monetary investment to make sure people feel safe? Is it the number of law enforcement officers you feel like you need down there? From a city perspective, what is the barrier to doing a parade and rally like we've done in past years?
I think, look, there are, so first, I won't necessarily say that there's a barrier to it, that we'll probably have elements of both in terms of what we come up with at the end. I think that, and I have respect for this, I think law enforcement was there in very strong numbers last year. And for people who question it, when you have 800 officers in a city that at that point probably had about 1,150 total officers. Now, we had a lot of mutual aid, but certainly we had more than half of the Kansas City Police Department working the parade and rally. So, you start to recognize it may not just be a sheer volume of officers issue. There are other things that you can do to help prevent criminal acts, and some of that is the efficiency of the parade itself, the events going around, the consumption of alcohol, or at least the amount of time in which people are consuming. And so those are all things, or smoking marijuana or doing any other types of things. And those are all things that I think we are evaluating now. In terms of barriers, certainly, look, the bigger the event is, the more people, the more porous the boundaries, the harder it becomes to provide the highest level of security. Part of that is life, right? We go to parades, we go to events each day where we recognize that, if you're going to an area shopping mall, there are not metal detectors outside of it. But that doesn't mean they don't invest in good security and cameras and others. So we're trying to see what that proper balance is, knowing that we won't just declare and cannot legally declare the whole city of Kansas City a gun-free zone for a day.
What about then when it comes to doing something like the NFL draft and how that was set up with, entry points, exit points? having the metal detectors, is that just too large of a financial investment right now, or is that something you're considering?
I think we are considering elements of everything that's been done around the country. We've looked at other communities that have had recent celebrations. We certainly looked at the situation out of New Orleans as an area of concern, but recognize that, a month after they had that, they'll end up having the Super Bowl. They did have the Sugar Bowl 2 days later, and so we're looking at a balance. I think probably the greatest challenge you would get from an NFL draft type setup is actually, the amount of, frankly, they shut down Pershing, which is the street that runs in front of Union Station. You had all of your fencing. You really had a lot of infrastructure built up for several weeks for that several-day event. You're not going to erect and shut down downtown Kansas City for 2 weeks before a gathering that is really contingent on a lot of other things happening, knock on wood. So for me, I think my main message is we'll always think about security, but I said this, and, it kind of gets forgotten in the story, and I agree with people who say you got to keep living. And what we will do is make sure that we're still a city that does big, major, outstanding events. In the same footprint of the Chiefs Parade rally from last year, we did Celebration at the Station, a symphony concert. Now, of course, we all recognize the obvious differences, perhaps, including crowd size, the people who were there, but we had a very safe celebration at the station, and we've had that for years in that same front of Union Station spot. And so we will look to see all we can do to make sure that it's safe. I think, from the Star piece, and I respect their reporting. I think they did good reporting, but nonetheless, I said that we're evaluating everything. Now, of course, you can put that in a negative sense and say they're evaluating and taking it away from something, but I think that's more of what we're doing, evaluating all options.
What have the Chiefs said? I mean, if this thing does look different than it has in years past, will that be because the city made that decision, or will that be because the Chiefs have said and suggested to the city, we don't want to do what we've done?
I won't pretend to speak for the Chiefs, and I know they're preparing for games and doing a bunch of other things, including trying to get a three-peat. I'll say this. The buck stops with us. I take incredible personal responsibility and probably great lifelong disappointment from what happened at that rally last year. Having attended a memorial service for Ms. Lopez Galvan, having met with her family. And the thing is, not only did she lose her life, but lots of her relatives were kids who ended up shot. I never want to see a thing like that again, ever, in the city that I have the fortune of being the mayor of, at least for a few more years. And so buck stops with us. This is a heavy-duty law enforcement and event planning conversation, of course, just like we do with other teams, current, Royals, whomever. We collaborate with all of our partners. That would include, of course, any team that would be part of a celebration and as a guest of the city for such a celebration. But we're looking to build the safest possible event that we can for everybody in this entire region. And we believe we can do that.
But the Chiefs,
believe, by the way, it's vital we do that.
Yeah, but the Chiefs haven't signaled to you that they don't want to do that. It's just an ongoing conversation. Is that where this is at right now, or have they said? I know you're not speaking for them, but have they said to you like we don't want to do something like we've done in the past?
I think I'll let the Chiefs speak for themselves. For us, our focus is making sure that we can have the safest celebration, and frankly, because it is a city-hosted celebration, right? The Chiefs are our guests. All of you are our guests, and we'll look to try to build out the best possible thing ever in collaboration with everybody who would be part of the discussion.
Mayor Lucas is on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So on that note, you may have also seen, speaking of your friends at the Kansas City Star, reporting from yesterday, late evening, that the River Market has hired private security. How do you, as the mayor, interpret a neighborhood in town basically saying, we don't know if our tax dollars used to fund the police can really keep us as safe as we need to be right now? How do you, as the leader, interpret this story that River Market is going the private security route?
Look, I'm a real person, right? And so I understand their concern. Lots of Kansas Cityans get additional private security. Many of us have it on our homes. Many others have it on our businesses. And I think this was, now, of course, the story could be read as a rejection of the efforts made by KCPD. But as I see it, it's actually something very different, which is that they're saying we've had a lot of different individual businesses that are funding their own security. What if we pulled it together to make sure that we had a consistent presence of security in the evening hours and the overnight hours? I support that, and I get that. Sitting on the city council docket, actually, and just nobody reads it, and so I'll probably put out a release about it, is the city of Kansas City itself. floating an ordinance that is $1 million of additional funds outside of the KCPD budget that would help us fund off-duty sheriff's deputies, off-duty law enforcement officers to help secure and protect our entertainment districts. I think that, while maybe overall trends are down, we can't ignore the fact that in certain areas of the city, and the River Market's been one of them, the West Side, Crossroads, and others, that they have seen an ongoing crisis. And you can't just have thousands and thousands of dollars of damage and tell people, who've been broken in 3 or 4 times, it'll get better. And so I think that is something that we will look to do at City Hall, too. I look forward to working with not just Chief Graves, whom I regularly work with, but Sheriff Forte, others, right, in connection with that. This is something that is a crisis now. It needs to be addressed. I share the disappointment that our tax dollars alone aren't being able to address that. But, law enforcement hiring, I am learning, is more than just the amount of money that you have in personnel and salaries. There's a lot of stuff to try to get enough people there, and right now we don't have enough.
Mayor Lucas is here on KCMO Talk Radio. I want to touch on this, too, and I know that we've got a new prosecutor in town. Obviously, you endorsed Melissa Johnson, so you're high on her and what she can hopefully do on behalf of the community. But a report yesterday shows that the man recently released from prison was accused of the first murder of 2025 in Kansas City, Missouri. Jerome Davis, accused of second-degree murder. I mean, you talk to cops all the time, obviously. I do as well, and this is what they'll say. Hey, we're arresting the same people over and over and over again. How do we make sure that they can't get back out on the streets and commit these heinous acts of violence? What do you want to see, or what would you hope to hear from Melissa Johnson, the new prosecutor, on doing things exactly like this and making sure these people aren't back out on the streets?
Look, I have been so impressed by Melissa Johnson in the course of only a week. First of all, the gentleman who was released from Leavenworth of all places. And so a very serious federal sentence that, you usually don't actually get out that quickly. But I think there is a reality to this, which is that most of the people who go to prison, and we need to think about it differently in society, most of them are coming back. Right. And so with the nature of how long you can keep them, Chief Graves and I had a discussion about this at the board meeting the other day, the police board meeting, which is the fact that on a lot of these property crimes, people are getting sentenced related to the property crime itself. So it's a burglary where you get $800. Usually your sentencing guideline isn't something that sits you down for 10 years. So what can we do to prevent? What can we make sure we do to get these people arrested? What can we do to make sure that they do get tried and convicted and sent to at least some incarceration? And I think that starts to deter others. The other things, though, that Melissa Johnson did, and I think here's the issue, Pete, where you can start to get, I think, lengthier sentences and, frankly, better sentences for people who are bad actors. She said, once again, her office will start prosecuting drug distribution cases, something I believe her predecessor went away from. She is going to prosecute, and for felonies, more domestic violence cases. And that's how you start to get these people who are carrying guns, who are trafficking drugs, who are breaking into things, who are giving guns to these 14 and 15-year-olds. And that's how you start to shut down the system. If you catch a guy just on the burglary, then you're right. Maybe you're only going to get him for, a 2-year sentence. He gets out in 6 months. He's back on the streets at some point. If you get him carrying a firearm as a possession, if you get him with drugs on him, that starts to get you several years. That takes real bad actors off the streets. I believe Melissa Johnson is dedicated to that. I know KCPD has forever been dedicated to that. And I think that starts to make a difference so that a year from now, I'm not talking about, and you're not talking about, the River Market needs to hire extra security. We're not talking about the city funding sheriff's deputies. And importantly, and hopefully, when the chiefs are going for the four-peat, we're not talking about being afraid of a bunch of bozos who are walking around with guns and backpacks because they feel like they can operate with impunity on our streets. It all connects to something else, and I think this change by Melissa is going to be an important one, and I think all of us should commend it.
Mayor Lucas, we'll wrap it up with this. We've got the game coming up on Saturday. Game prediction for the Texans, but more importantly, will there be a bigger celebration in the Lucas household after a Chiefs win, or coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern time or 11 a.m. Central time on Monday for Inauguration Day?
Look, I have been mayor under President Trump before. Actually, you'd be proud. I'm giving a speech on Friday to the U.S. Conference of Mayors about mayoring in the Trump administration. So I wish you could hear it. I'll tell you about it later. Look, we will be excited for the Chiefs. I've been a Chiefs fan forever. I've known about Donald Trump for most of my life, but Chiefs Super Bowls give me a little bit more of a tingle down my spine. So look forward to working with the next administration, but really look forward to, and this is probably the only way I get to the White House, is the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl and we go back for another White House celebration.
Oh, that's pretty good. Only way he gets back is a Chiefs win. All right. Well, you know what? We got to get that set up. Maybe we'll get him down to Mar-a-Lago at some point. There he is, Mayor Lucas. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, sir. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Quinton Lucas on KCMO. He just, here's the thing, though, about the mayor. He's always, him and Trump have this in common. You rarely see him without the jacket and tie on. You notice that?
Absolutely.
You got to say.
He was even out at the pool openings in his suit and jacket.
Yeah. I mean, that is a similarity, now that I think about it, between Trump and Quinton Lucas. Now, he might get a little warm down at Mar-a-Lago with the jacket and tie on. You know, you're not used to that kind of humidity down there in Southeast Florida. But that would be something. God, we got to get those guys to the White House under Trump. I got to see. Could you imagine? That would be its own reality TV show. Chiefs go to the White House. You got the Mahomeses down there based on everything that they've been through with Trump and the Instagram post from Brittany. You got Travis with Taylor show up. You got the mayor. Oh, my gosh. The news angles on this are tremendous.
Butker would be front row this time.
Thank you, Butker. Andy, we know how ownership feels when it comes to, the political arena, the Hunt family at large. Oh, my gosh. And, frankly, they deserve to go to the White House. They didn't get to meet Trump in 2020 because of COVID. They've had to meet this, bumbling balloon the last couple of years. So now it's time to go, daddy's home. Let's go. Get them back there. If nothing else, that's why we need the three-peat.